This is the mighty Ganges, that a river sacred in the hearts of millions, celebrated as the Mother River. But stand on its shore and peer into its waters, and holiness feels far from your mind. Connect together. Bits of garbage drift by, its waters murky and unclear. Occasionally bubbling to the surface, it feels more like a giant drain, poisoned by decades of industry. And yet, tens of millions still arrive each year, not far, seeking to complete their sacred baptism. And this year's Big Hujia, the richest family in India, also came. Ambani family, that's right, that hand grip, that a petrochemical telecom giant with hundreds of billions of dollars in assets. Mukesh Ambani, that he is not only the richest man in India, the world's top 10 super rich, but you have to think he came to the Ganges. What is the environmental charity? That would be naive that he's here to wash his identity. According to on-site media, before heading to the Ganges, Ambani, the team has specially adjusted a large number of security guards in temples, mosques, clear an exclusive area hours in advance. They poured 3 tons of disinfectant powder into the river, forcibly put this section of the river, evolved into a VIP pool. The crowd was kept dozens of meters away. The scene is like a big enemy. Someone joked that the whole Yakagawa looks like it's been temporarily contracted. Although layers of protection have been done, Ambani's wife, Nita, was born a Brahmin. He refused to bathe with a look of disgust, stay on the shore as still as a mountain. Eldest son and daughter-in-law symbolically splashed a few scoops of water and left in a hurry. The youngest son weighs more than 150 kilograms. 4 bodyguards were called to the scene to tow car him into the water, lifted out again, completed a full body soaking ceremony. See here, many people are wondering, why do you have to take this sewage? Bath with so much money? Well, the answer lies in the social fabric of India. Although Ambani is the richest man, but he was born in Fisher, traditionally belonged to the merchant class. That's the third layer in the caste system. In the bones. This class, still used by many Brahmins and Sadhus, seen as a lowly upstart, whereas in India this is about religious ceremonies, where caste is orthodox. Wealth alone cannot buy true respect, as the super rich like Ambani will spare no effort. Proof of this through various religious ceremonies. Bathing the Ganges in public, is performing a kind of spiritual surrender, create a sense of authority through baptism with holy water. We also try to use these symbolic acts, climb to a higher position in the traditional social system. And this, which brings up a really tough question, that wasn't the caste system abolished by the Constitution long ago? How did that come to be in real life? It can also affect a person's dignity in his way, and identity. Actually, the Indian caste has never really left the estate. Although the caste is not directly stated on the ID card, but your last name, language habits, the marriage circle will silently reveal your origin, the starting point of the caste system. Dating back over 3,000 years that time, a nomadic Aryan from Central Asia. Over the mountains, they tread south into the Indies. They see themselves as ambassadors of civilization, and in the face of those with darker skin tones, different way of life of the Dharapidis. The first reaction is not fusion, it's about creating a hierarchy, locking social structures with identity. The embryonic form of the caste system IT was born out of this sense of cultural superiority, not complicated at first. There are only 2 basic categories. One is the ruler area, the other is the conquered aborigines, simple and rude. Skin pigmentation. Later, the Aryans also began to divide. Gradually Brahmins were born, the 3 classes of Sidiri and Fisher, plus the Aborigines, the Mandala class of the Dravidians. Indian society, 4 main caste grades were formed. Brahmins stand at the top of the pyramid. The right to interpret religion and knowledge. IT is the spiritual guide of the whole society. And Satyr is the warrior and the ruler, responsible for the country's military and political affairs. The Fey society acts as an economic intermediary, manage agriculture, livestock, and trade. The Euro is the lowest worker doing a job that no one wants to do. Clean up the trash, building roads, and moving bricks. Serve the upper layer. And in addition to these 4 species, there is also a caste called Dalit, also known as the Untouchables, seemingly reasonable division of labor. In fact, it was the earliest institutional discrimination. These characters were not chosen out of interest. IT was destined. What class were you? Born in, what trajectory is your life locked on? The appearance of the code unlocked. It provides sacred legitimacy to the caste system. This code, detailed rules on how each species should live, what to wear, what kind of food, to whom, with whom, like a species survival manual. With the passage of time, the caste system is getting tougher. Marriage began to be strictly controlled by caste. It is almost impossible to intermarry between different classes, eat at the same table, study together, even from the same well, are unthinkable transgressions. Even today, some Indian villages are still. They maintain this invisible isolation. Certain low-caste Dalek populations, avoiding others when walking prevent your shadow from touching others. Some people even move around, carry a broom with you, clean up the footprints left behind. After entering the Middle Ages, the caste system in India began to integrate closely with the land, become more entrenched, especially when religious rights, when security and land interests are tied together. The whole hierarchical structure of society began to be completely solidified. Eurogate and Sami class, relying on religious authority and military might, got large-scale control of land resources through the feudal system, and the handtop and the untouchable can only be their vassal for generations, reduced to a labor force attached to the land. They don't own the land. Even if I work all day, all descendants that a lifetime of income is just a living. The so-called hard work to get rich, that it's just empty talk in this system. Land was not just a means of survival at that time, that it's an identity symbol. Landowner is king. The landless are as low as dust. By the 19th century, when the British settlers arrived, not only has the situation not changed, instead, it got worse. When the colonial government established its administrative system, introduced a comprehensive population management system, and caste division.it was written into the official document like this, became a legitimate endorsement of the caste system. The British soon discovered higher caste groups are culturally cultivated, generally better in language skills and educational level. Therefore, they are recruiting civilian officials, police, and court personnel. They have an almost natural tendency towards Brahmins. Yoshidi. This tilt further solidifies the caste. Let the upper classes not only control the land, and the government has the voiceover. After India gained independence in 1947, Gandhi's nonviolent ministry cooperation won national liberation. But in the face of the caste system, he had a real problem. The new government attempts to fundamentally shake this old social structure. The first step was land reform. It sounds incredibly radical. Those who have controlled the land for generations, caste landlords, stripping away the core of resources, transforming cultivators into true owners. But this reform soon fell into an invisible quagmire. Laws on paper seem impassioned. The actual operation is difficult that high caste landlords are not monologues. They get around it in all sorts of ways. Some transfer land nominally to relatives. Some split the registration and deliberately conceal it. Some even bribe local officials directly. Avoid redistribution. The lower caste were full of hope. As a result, I didn't even get a pool off one. They are still. You can only make a living by respecting other people's land. Land reform is like a chain, obviously said to be cut, just changed the color. And here's the irony. The failure of land reform, not only did it not break the original social hierarchy, instead, in the name of reform failure, once again solidified the existing pattern. Higher species not only preserve resources, and under the guise that it's a legal outcome, continue to maintain economic advantage, and the first kind of people, after a bout of hope, don't dare to act rashly as India's economy enters a period of modernization. This unbalanced land distribution into deeper social isolation, urban expansion. Higher caste groups dominate transportation at a high-end residential area with complete infrastructure. These areas are often adjacent to schools, hospital, commercial center, extremely concentrated resources. The first sex is marginalized. You can only make a living in the Pingyu district on the edge of the city. Living on a dusty road in a hut with unstable water and electricity's uplead, IT has almost no connection to the center of the city, and the physique of the living environment that IT also brings about isolation between people. People of different races start at birth. They live in a completely different space. They go to different schools, walk different streets, buy different items that we don't even breathe the same air. Higher caste families rely on extra caste courses. Study abroad opportunities are readily available. These kids grew up on an elite diet, trained to become a lawyer naturally, engineer executive, and the children of the bottom family. They often have a shortage of teachers. The teaching materials are backward, difficult problems in further education, even if you get lucky enough to get into college. Also because of language and culture, that self-confidence gap, that you're kind of constrained by the competition, we see a strange phenomenon. India ostensibly claims breaking the caste system of vocational practice, but in practice, power wealth. Education and identity remain inextricably linked. Caste no longer determines what career you can pursue, but it will deeply affect whether you have a chance to go for that career. The fair door has nothing to do with it, but the key is only in the hands of a few people. Many low-caste young people, even if they try extremely hard, I also find myself always blocked from the class. Beyond the ascending passage, they live in the corners of society, looking at those who grew up with everything, head high in the sun. That feeling of powerlessness. It can't be fixed with a sentence or two about equality of opportunity. Although India is a country with more than 1.40 billion population, but more than 80% of them are Hindu, and it is this religious belief system, for the caste system, offers an almost unshakable philosophical reputation in the Hindu universe. Everyone is not an isolated journey, but is part of the infinite cycle, the origin of your life. Whether it is Balom or Dalit, that it's no accident, it's an echo of your actions in a previous life. Those who do good are reincarnated as higher caste. Those who do not do good will fall into the first sword. This causal relationship, deeply binding social hierarchy to religious significance, that caste is no longer just an identity label that IT was destined to happen. And here's the thing, Hinduism also gives us the concept of dharma. Everyone has a gift. The tasks assigned by the caste are not social arrangements, that it's part of the cosmic order. High caste people should practice inno governance. Lower caste should be subject to labor and service. If someone attempts to defy this arrangement, IT is not just a social phenomenon. IT is the enemy of the entire divine order. I end this way. Most people, and I grew up learning where I was supposed to be. Even at the bottom, I will also believe that as long as I stand my own, you can vote for a good family in the next life. The beauty of this belief framework is that he doesn't need coercion. IT can also make people actively obey. Psychological obedience is the deepest control, but then came the problem. If caste determinism is so unbreakable, is that in Indian society? Isn't there any kind of class mobility? The reality is not so absolute. Although the caste system attempts to create a constant order, but Indian society itself is multi-layered, complex dynamic structure, especially since entering modern society. There are indeed some passages, the phenomenon of strategic imitation in search of an identity leap. Some lower status caste groups, active learning and imitation officer caste lifestyles, like changing your diet, use elegant language, participate in sacrificial ceremonies, observe high-level wedding and funeral customs, etc. Whitewash their social image under certain conditions that if a group is large, increased economic power, they control local power. There is a chance to obtain upward recognition. IT is even recognized by local governments. Its high caste status. IT sounds a bit like pretending to be a nobleman, but in Indian reality, he is indeed for some obscure species, provides a way to break through. You know, existing species and subspecies populations in India, more than 4,000 species. And most of them are not initially. IT has a clear social orientation, except for those few. The top and the bottom are fixed in historical records. Middle, the region is a zone of chaotic identity, and this ambiguity that IT just gives the opportunity to climb up, especially where local power structures are loose. Areas with strong clan power, there are some small groups that would not have been popular as long as you have the economic initiative. They can reinvent their role in society. They would even hire monks to build temples and erect monuments. To enhance their own legitimacy, that India's richest man, Mukesh Ambani, upward breakthrough process that IT also precisely reflects. The caste system is still undercurrent in contemporary India. Ambani was born a filibuster, traditionally engaged in trade. The merchant class with finance ranked third among the four major species, and his wife, Ni Ambani, born in Brahmins. IT is the highest level in the field of religion and knowledge in the Hindu tradition. Marriage has a strong requirement for hierarchical legitimacy. High caste male welcome. Marrying a low caste woman is tolerated, but the other way around is almost never allowed. Offside behavior once violated. Rejected by relatives that at worst, it can lead to conflict. This is also why Mukesh and Nita joined forces. It aroused great concern in society that IT is said that in order to successfully complete the marriage, Mukesh briefly became a British citizen and turned the identity technicalities into sardines and samurai caste. This seems to some conservative families. It is a nobler existence than Fey society, although this does not change the law or its caste. But this strategic shift is enough toiletry. Even the richest people that IT is impossible to completely escape the unspoken rules of the caste system. After marriage, Mukesh regained his Indian citizenship, still retained Fisher's identity, but for him, the longer-term goal is to pass the next generation, complete identity optimization. His children, almost without exception, they married into high caste families that it's no accident, more like a carefully planned family strategy. Marriage by bullet, put the highly soluble bloodline, tied to Fisher's wealth that a smoother social communication for future generations. This seemingly successful class leap, from a certain perspective that IT is indeed an elite-level promotion sample. But the problem is also obvious. It doesn't have the potential for universal replication. After all, the average first-sex family, there is no million-dollar mansion. There is no transnational resource. Not to mention, how many low-caste young people are there? Connect with that high-caste girls are not qualified for normal communication. Although as early as 1995, the Indian government has already passed the law, recognized the legality of interracial marriage to end broken endogamy. Considerations for promoting social integration. The government even failed in 2006 that a special incentive has been introduced. If between high and low species enter into marriage, bonus subsidy of 50,000 rupees that on the surface the IT was a brave attempt to break down traditional barriers, but the actual effect is far from ideal. Many families, especially conservatives of great height, still adhere to the creed of pure blood. Once a child is found to be in a low-caste relationship, often not trying to dissuade, they cut off their financial support, cut off contact, even resorting to extreme honor killings, even if it is allowed by law, and high-caste men marrying low-caste women. And there is real inequality. First-sex family, they were often required to pay high dowries in exchange for status promotion. This twisted trading logic, what was supposed to be a marriage of promotion and equality, it became a naked social business that IT can be said that in many parts of India, interracial marriage is no longer a matter of two people, that it's about family pride. Religious glory is the TO social hierarchy in the battle of production. Since interracial marriage is so difficult, is there anyone who attempts to live entire daily lives, secretly take shortcuts, like impersonating a higher caste in exchange for social convenience or promotion that on the surface, this seems possible, it's hard to reach the sky. The first is cultural and psychological barriers. India places more emphasis on leaf power and reincarnation in the hearts of many. Using someone else's honor without authorization is not just fraud, IT is a provocation to the gods, the deep binding of religious beliefs. Let many people at the bottom, even if they are dissatisfied, they rarely cross the line. Secondly, from the perspective of physical characteristics, traditional higher castes, especially those of Aryan descent, they generally have lighter skin tones, tall frame, and straight nose. These characteristics that IT is subtly perceived by many Indians as elegant. or a symbol of nobility, and on the other hand, classified as the first sex. Especially people of Dharapatu descent, they are more likely to have darker skin tones. The facial features are more generous. The hair is thick and curly. This visual recognition is crude, but it has always existed in the interaction between the countryside and the city, and it plays a potential but strong role in identity perception. Big effect that it's not just about looks. Differences in lifestyle are also highly identifiable that higher caste groups adhere strictly to the concept of purity, especially the Brahmin class. Pay attention to food cleanliness and dietary rules. Almost harsh, usually a vegetarian diet. Reject all meaty ingredients. Utensils for eating together. Method. Even whether someone touches it or not is pretty particular. The first sex doesn't have such a complicated taboo. Meat and seafood. Spicy foods play an important role in their diet. You can see it in Indian street food stalls. Of course, personal cleanliness is also reflected. Display level traces. Higher species such as Borman. Get used to using your left hand to clean your body after using the toilet. But only for myself. Outsiders are not allowed to intervene. The first sexually untouchables, even in some regions, prohibited from using public toilets. You can only find another space to solve your physiological needs. Can imagine such differences in life background. It's hard to get a first sex person. Easily imitate the high caste lifestyle without being noticed. Language is another barrier. High caste family. Most of them have strong educational resources. Children receive a British education from an early age. Master fluent standard English. Clear intonation. Well-worded. Almost seamlessly integrated with the international workplace. That in contrast, the first sexual family. Education penetration is well below the national average. IT is not easy to successfully complete the secondary school curriculum. They speak more of the local dialect or English with a strong accent. Harsh words when talking to people. Intonation, tone, and color. This kind of auditory label often opens. Reveal the true origin. Go one step further. Even if some people try to change their identity through packaging, the price to pay is also far more affordable. They don't just have to change lives, imitate the high caste lifestyle. False family genealogy must also be corrected. Altering past marriage records. Even into the gray area, TO bribed the priests of the local temples in exchange for so-called caste certificates. Every operation is for funding, the great test of experience and risk, and what can be exchanged, just a fleeting social illusion. Once something happens, they may even be expelled from their community, discredited. Therefore, in Indian society, caste, never just a label on a registration form, but he went deep into human blood, appearance, eating habits, language expression, even every detail of daily life. Even if you don't publicly report your home, a person's birth is often just a glance away. You can be clearly identified by listening to a few words. In Indian society, the reason why the caste system has continued to this day, not just because of deep historical traditions, what's more, it has been highly institutionalized and embedded in the fabric of modern politics. This system has long been more than just a social problem. IT became the ruling class that held on top power. Effective tools for consolidating interests. Highly soluble populations in India, especially Poloman and Sandhi. In wealth, domination of land and educational resources. They are often local or even national. The actual players in politics. These people rely on their economic strength, become the top gifter behind many politicians. And the politicians, nature also enjoys being involved in policymaking. Lean towards them. In exchange for ballot money and support from a network of organizations. So not a caste system that should have been reformed or abolished. Instead, it has become an unspoken rule of political stability, intentionally maintained and used. Take the Bharatiya Janata Party. This party has great influence across the country, and grassroots organization and financial mobilization capabilities to a large extent, relying on higher caste support groups. Proman provided the ideological framework for it. Saudi Arabia established an administrative and security system for it. Together, they formed the political machine, the core framework, and on the other hand, those in Dalit or other oppressed caste-based local political parties then try to pass the The way sex advocates acquire political resources, promise guaranteed quotas to those at the bottom, provide education subsidies, and preferential recruitment of civil servants and other welfare policies in exchange for political support, and the solidifying effect of all this sexual politics. Very obvious that an identity that's supposed to fade with time, reinforced, continuous segmentation. They may even generate new subspecies consciousness at the time of the election, and the different castes form alliances, form a voting bloc. Sexual identity becomes divided into political loyalties. The core basis for the distribution of benefits. Ironically, this seemingly democratized treatment process that in essence let the caste system become more unbreakable at the same time. The growth rate of the Indian economy in recent years really eye-catching. According to the latest data from the International Monetary Fund, India's GDP has surpassed the $4 trillion mark. It is rapidly approaching Japan. It could become the fourth largest economy in the world. However, behind the prosperity figures, there's a brain drain. Data display. Indian Institute of Technology and other top. Among the graduates of the university, more than half choose to move abroad after graduation, especially when traveling to the United States, UK, and Singapore. These people, most are well-trained, well-educated high-caste elites. At first glance, IT seems puzzling. Higher caste is inherently superior in India. Why are you leaving? The answer is not hard to guess that on one hand, the job market opportunities in India are limited, serious class solidification. Even the elite, it's hard to get a space that matches one's own abilities that on the other hand. Indian government in recent years, increasing taxes on high-income groups in addition, the policy is not transparent. Administrative inefficiency, many high-caste families prefer to transfer wealth to a more stable system. Countries with more equal social structures long-term returns and quality of life. What's even more speechless is the current Indian bureaucracy IT also shows a clear caste preference inside government departments. Many positions are monopolized by people with high caste status. Ability is not the primary metric. Even talented first-sex people pass the most rigorous Indian civil service exam. It is also difficult to really promote change in official. Every one of their proposals have to face the caste system, informal approval and resistance. The caste system has met deeply politics in India, economic, cultural, and even administrative systems. You can change the constitutional stripes, it's hard to change. People have believed in identity for thousands of years, and obedience to hierarchy. Alright, that's all for today's video.